Hello and good evening, everybody. Welcome to the very first Coach's Corner of 2022. We've got a great crew with us here tonight. We're going to talk about goals, goals from last year that we met or didn't, and how to set new goals for this year. So be sure to, if you have any questions, throw them in the Facebook comments. These guys will do their best to answer anything they can. With that, I'm going to hand it off to Duke Bronis to get us started.
All right. Well, welcome everybody to a new year. I think for those who haven't seen the session we did last year was mostly our first time being able to talk about setting goals. It would be a good, for those looking at doing goals, it'd be a good one to probably go back and review. You can find that on the Coach's Corner in the YouTube page. But tonight we're going to go ahead and talk goals again, because the new year kind of gives us a blank canvas to work with. We can let go. You know, it's kind of an artificial date, because we can make this any time of the year. We can set this. But New Year's has given us the ability kind of to really empty the slate, clear the canvas, and start again. And it doesn't mean you have to have your goals today. It may mean, hey, I'm going to start thinking about goals, have them in 2 weeks or a month. You know, the idea here is that you think about what the next year has coming for you. What kind of things do you want to get done for next year? And it doesn't have to be all around fighting. It could be around service, could be around getting back with friends, how you do that. Could be just touching base with people again. Could be work, could be family, all of those things. But we're a coaching show and mostly talking about fighting. So that's what we're going to talk about today. The second piece of this conversation really goes around the point of goals they're not necessarily for everybody. Some people, they don't feel like they do well with goals. That pressure isn't good, or they have had bad situations in the past where goals just didn't give them that good feel. So don't feel bad if you come back out of this and it's like, I don't want to set a goal, but I do want to do these things. You don't have to set a finite thing to essentially say, I'm going to do 2 practices a week for 52 weeks. You don't have to do that. You could just say, I want to get back to fight practice more. How many times did I go last year? Well, more just means one more time than that. So, the piece here is setting goals is really about how you deal with where you want to be and what things you want to, where you want to get in your life. So you can build those based on how you feel about them. It isn't what we're putting on top of you. We're just giving you the opportunity to think about how to set goals, hopefully a little better, what to think about when you're setting goals. And this is one of those things. Could be, if goals stress me out too much, don't do them. Set a different thing up, and we'll talk about that later. The good part tonight is we have Captain Sivrit. Lucky enough, he's pretty close to our home practice, but he travels, Sivrit, about an hour quarter to get to practice?
About an hour 20, hour 15.
Yep. So, and he comes up here quite a bit. He started training on Zoom with us on our Sundays with footwork, and here we are now. So, he offered to join us in our show. We wanted to bring some actual people on from Coach's Corner that had set some goals and were either successful or not successful. Everybody is going to be successful in some, not successful in some of their other goals throughout the year. And that's perfectly fine. The other person we have is Sir Dane out of North Shield. And he kind of reached out and we get to talk. And I tell you what, I look and I'm like, maybe I should set some goals, because he was truly motivational. His last year, I think, was he turned what many of us really struggled through a year into a year he can look back and be very, very proud of. And so I'm really happy to have him on the show. And of course, we have Sean, cyber producer, and Al-Anon sitting in the background as an assistant producer, or as he put it down, is our trainee, but he's just kind of monitoring. He may speak up here and there. We'll see. I thank everybody for taking some time out today, especially New Year's Day, and to those online that are watching. So let's go ahead and kick this off. I'm going to go ahead and start with Sean for a second. Hey, Sean, did you set any goals last year?
Well, I didn't exactly make a list, but there's always something you want to improve. There's always some things you want to do. I don't know that I really set fighting specific goals, but I do know that at the beginning of last year, I decided that I wanted to physical fitness is always a good thing to improve on, and I started just walking at the beginning of the year. I had realized at the end of last year that when I was in the best shape of my life was when I was stationed in Korea and I didn't have a car, and we were walking everywhere. Going a mile, to get to the bar was like, we didn't even think twice about that. And like, we were walking everywhere because we didn't have a car. And I really was in the best shape of my life at that time. So it wasn't really, there's always this mythology of, at the new year, I'm going to get to the gym and I'm going to go to the gym 5 times a week and I'm going to pump iron and I'm going to do all this stuff and I'm going to be in shape. And it's really just bullshit. It is common knowledge at this point that most of those people that set New Year's resolutions to be in better shape and get to the gym and all that stuff, that all falls apart within less than 30 days. Most of the people that say I'm going to get to the gym more, they just within 30 to 60 days they're out and they're gone. There's like statistics about that sort of thing. So it really wasn't that. But I just decided I was gonna start walking more. And I can tell you one of the things that I did in that time was, like Ronald said, January 1st is a totally arbitrary date, right? If you decide that you want to do something, you can set whatever date you want for when you're going to start onto a thing. And so one of the things that I did late last year was I actually started my walking between Christmas and New Year's, because I decided that if I'm not going to do this in that week between Christmas and New Year's, I'm not going to do it after New Year's either. So it was one of those things that I December 26th last year, went out, walked 3 miles. And that had been my goal, is to kind of get 3 miles in a day. And for the most part, I hit that. I looked at my Fitbit recently and I'm at like 18, almost 1900 miles, for the year. And I was, I don't necessarily know that I lost a ton of weight. People tell me that I look thinner. I think it just kind of redistributed it, but it was just one of those things that that was a thing that I decided was in my best interest, just in general, not necessarily from a fighting perspective, that I've been able to do and I've been able to stick to for the most part. Having the Fitbit helps, for sure. The biggest thing for that was, I decided that I was going to carve out that time for myself. And it really wasn't so much about what I did or how far I walked or how long I did it. It was just, I'm going to give myself an hour a day to do this, and to try to stick to it. And I've been pretty happy with how much I've been able to get done on that. And like I said, I've mentioned a couple of times on the show, when we talk about physical fitness is is important in our sport, but it's not my thing. I'm not the guy to say, how do I get in better shape for fighting? I'm not that guy. Because I've been conditioning my body to do SCA combat for, almost 40 years. And so there's not a lot of, I have to, get my cardio up, or I have to, get strength training up or anything like that. I mean, my body is conditioned to do that. So it is important. I'm just not the guy to tell you how to do that. It's just not my specialty. So I just wanted to walk a little bit. And I've been able to do that. I've been really happy with that. Otherwise, I mean, there's been some things that, especially now in the COVID years, there's still so much uncertainty about what we actually can do. Yeah, we had first event, but what about second event? I mean, are we going to be able to have more events? And there's still a lot of trepidation. There's still a lot of, quite frankly, a little bit of PTSD that we've all got going on as far as, yeah, that was a fun event, but I don't know if I could do another one of those. So, how much we can fight is dependent on the virus still, and that sort of stuff. And, so some of it was just being able to fight as much as I can, and to be able to fight again. I was able to fight in the at Great Western in the Roses tourney there, which was a great time. I fought in our crown tourney and did reasonably well for myself, I guess. But that wasn't really a goal. I mean, winning crown wasn't really a goal. It was, it was, I want to be able to compete in the list. And I wanted to be able to compete at the Valkyrie Rose tourney at Great Western, but it wasn't to win. It was, I want to be able to try. I want to be in good enough shape to, get back to where I need to be able to actually fight in those things. So those are some of the things that I was looking at. Like I said, I didn't have a list of, X number of practices or anything like that. It's just, I guess it was just more and being able to get back to it at all, and we're still going to be dealing with that for a while.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a big part of that is, the good part is we don't have, because things are changing still constantly, you set pretty attainable goals in that, I just want to be able to go and fight with somebody again, or go do this tournament because it was going to happen. And those are great goals, because, to tell you the truth, it's kind of like that first big hump in the road. You have to get over those because you haven't had it for such a long time. So I think those, end up being pretty big goals, breaking the ice type of deal. Sir Dane, I heard you. So we had a long talk, and it's really cool. I have to say, I look and I'm like, man, I'm a slacker. So tell us what you did.
Well, it's a long story. I'll try and keep it brief, but we all know what happened in 2020. And I had big plans for 2020, and it all just kind of collapsed. And I found towards the end of 2020 that I needed change. I needed some motivation. I needed to do something. So I put this plan together, and as Duke Sean was already mentioning, I thought the cliched January 1st thing was dumb, but I also thought, and this was in early November, I also thought attempting to get onto a diet, attempting to get onto a training program through the holidays was also I was just going to derail it. So I picked December 22nd, and I said, December 22nd, I'm going to take a photo of myself, and I'm going to give myself a year. And so for the entire month of December, I came up with a plan. And I know people have talked about, the analogies, you mentioned it earlier in our conversation, that you can't climb a ladder in one jump. You got to go rung by rung. And I didn't want to guess. So I actually kind of used a war analogy. I said I was going to fight a 1-year war to myself. And I broke up my year into 4 sections. And I made goals on each of those sections, and they were some of them were micro goals, and some of them were big overarching year-long goals. And the big one was just, I wanted to be in the best fighting shape and in the best fighting mindset and the best fighting condition that I have ever been in. So that was a lofty one. And when you say that to yourself, it's hard to tackle in one go. But I kind of broke it down into, all right, well, let's start with what we can control. And Duke Sean mentioned fitness. So I thought, well, let's get some consistency and let's dedicate ourselves to, this many workouts a week, and for the first month. And I had micro goals like that set up for much of the year. What I didn't take into account was, it's the shifting battlefield, and I was hitting my goals. I was going past my goals. I was blowing my goals out of the water. The consistency, kind of caught fire, and all of a sudden it wasn't a struggle to hit the goals. It was a struggle to not exceed them. I was having to tell myself, to relax, take a recovery day. Ultimately, I started with focusing on physical conditioning because we had no fighter practice. I know we had a lot of the online things, and I was consuming those as much as I could, which was a lot, to kind of keep my mind engaged with fighting. But I need to work on my body first. So I spent the first 3 months of 2021 just physically training. One of our fighters up here in Minnesota, he issued the 100-day Pell challenge to me. And I thought that would be a good segue into starting to implement the things I was learning from you and your group with the footwork ladder drills, and implementing a lot of the conversations here on the Coach's Corner about focus and mindset, and and this was an opportunity to really do that stuff, because there was no fighting. I didn't have the luxury of putting on my armor and going to practice and sparring and just having it fun and whatever. Now if I wanted to participate with fighting, I had to do it on another level. I had to think, I had to come up with drills, I had to come up with ways to engage myself. So I did that throughout the course of the summer. I did the 100-day Pell challenge. I did footwork drills, I did classes, I did lessons, I continued working on my fitness. All said and done, I came out of 2021, I would argue, in the best shape of my life. I think I lost 80 pounds. I put on, a lot of strength. I feel I was in the Marine Corps, and just recently I actually put my Marine Corps uniform back on, and
Awesome.
It was loose. So it was, and that's the physical side of it. On the mental side of it, there was some mental struggles through 2020, depression, kind of, not hopelessness, but, just that the long exaggerated sigh that's inside of you. And, taking control of myself, taking control of my situation, not letting the year dictate how I was going to spend my life, not letting the year dictate what I should be doing, and just doing it myself. It was very beneficial. I feel better emotionally than I ever have. I feel better spiritually and physically. So it was, I know that's a lot to process, and I didn't really tell anybody here on how to set goals, because I'm not an expert on that. I just did it.
I think the big piece on that is, you came out of this, everybody's going to set their own goals. And the good part is you touched on a ton of points here that, you probably already came in, obviously you're out of Marines, you got a job that's physical. So fitness was a probably a little easier for you in this case, even though you may had to get more fit again. But I think the thing you touched on that a lot of people, there's easy ways to start. And one is just that idea of engaging again in fighting, in the thing you like so much, learning more about it than maybe you knew before, engaging in video reviews like we see Sean and those folks do, but Helga and Thorfinn do on Coach's Corner, or Great Fighters of YouTube, or there were a lot of stuff like that, or just and we talked about this earlier before we got online here, and that is, or going out and looking at YouTube videos on you by yourself and breaking them down and watching what people are doing, and pick, even if you want to pick one person at a time, so you can kind of see the development of what they're doing, so you get a better understanding. Then pick another person, because the brain engagement in this is a huge piece. You want to be great at something, you have to be engaged. The more you're engaged all the time, the better you're going to get at it. And that doesn't just mean physically, but mentally being engaged is super important. So I think in your case, you know, you touched on the mental engagement, taking control, you know, the physical fitness side, and then finding things that people were doing so that you could be engaged and do those physical pieces and learn and train them so that you got better at them. And I think that all of those things are really, really good. And I think a lot of people will be, well, you must have a lot of time on your hands, but you said how many kids you have?
I've got 6 children. And they're all
Yeah.
school aged.
So, that whole time thing out the window. You had to make time, right?
I did. And sometimes it was, just recently, for instance, it was, I have an hour. Do I watch Boba Fett or do I go for a 2-mile walk? And it pains me that I still haven't seen the first episode of Boba Fett. But I mean, that was the commitment that I was personally willing to make. Like, and I know it's easy for me to say, that people should do this or not do that. I'm not saying that. That's what I did. I prioritized mental health, physical health, training over sitting and watching Netflix, and there was actually a moment, and Sean talked about the walking, and I can't agree with him more. Walking is so helpful. But I remember I was sitting and watching a YouTube video on fitness and the guy's talking about walking, and I'm like, yeah, that's a great idea. And I'm sitting on my couch watching a video. I'm like, oh, okay, all right. Dane, stand up and start walking. And that moment, I put my phone down and I was like, I'm an idiot. And I stood up and I just started walking and went for a couple-mile walk or whatever.
It's ironic, right?
It is. It's funny how that works. And I don't know what it is, but every once in a while, something just trips in your brain and it's just a moment. And the walking thing was definitely, I mean, it's huge. It's very huge.
So we're going to go ahead and Severin. Let's hear from you on what kind of goals did you set? I mean, you're just coming back from what, how many years hiatus?
Yeah. So I started off fighting in the SCA back in about 90, but right around 2010, we stopped doing much with the SCA because of family commitments and work commitments it was not easy to make the time with scouts and other things. And so, as COVID hit, my youngest was also a senior in high school. So all of a sudden there's a combination of free time. So I decided that this was something that I really missed and I wanted to get back into. And so for some of the goals that I worked on setting, the first one actually was back in 19, was just losing some weight so I'd fit my armor. And so that was pretty much a lot of 19. And then in 20, a lot of it has been, first it was just getting back in shape to fight for being able to fight all day at a practice or be able to fight all day at an event. Being able to get my arm strength up to the point where, well, realistically, it's not going to get in my way at the end of, if later on in a fighting day, it's not my arm being fatigued that's killing me. It's actually being bested in skill. So I want the physical fitness to be up to that. Then, not having fought for a while, I had one, fairly small trivial goal, but it was just getting reauthorized and getting my martial status back, partially because we don't have a marshal in our group. And so being able to run a regular fighter practice locally meant that doing that. And then part of the rest of and that was through the first half of the year was a lot of that. And a lot of that was with footwork, with the Sunday footwork group. And one of the things I really liked about that was just the accountability. There was always someone there. There was always going to be happening at 1:00 on Sundays. We're just going to do it. And so I think that made it much easier to do. And then the second half, a lot of the year, a lot of it was really assessing where my fighting was and starting to fix deficiencies in my fighting. And so a lot of that was going through, and, I didn't know how long it would take to get back to where I was 10 years ago. And that was a big thing, was trying to figure out, well, a lot of it came back, and a lot of it came back that said, oh, you have these problems that you need to fix that you needed to fix 10 years ago. And so working through some of those, it's been great being able to have consistent coaching and going up to Detroit. So I've been doing since July, basically doing 2 fighter practices a week, one down here where fairly small, but we'll work on a lot of the stuff. Then going up on Sundays up to Detroit to get a lot more training, a lot more feedback between Branos, Rongvalder, Louis, Scythe, Ingolf. It's a lot of information. And so the advantage of having one practice that was just me and actually my son was a lot of that was just working through, trying to figure out what we had learned and putting that into practice. So a lot of that was really just figuring out, can I get back up to where I was before, which I think I'm about to, or about that in that realm. And then part of it is advancing beyond that. And there's some places I've gotten better than I was when I stopped, I think. And some places I still need to work back to bring myself back up to where I was when we stopped. And so, some of those goals were a lot of micro goals. We talked about this difference, a little bit beforehand, was, having some major goals, one of which was just to be kind of the best fighter I can. And the micro goals are then, okay, well, which individual things do I need to fix? Like where my toes are pointed, like where my hand is placed, and things like that. And so being able to get the constant feedback was really important. And so I think that I've, and then the nice thing is we were able to keep up with 2 practices a week all the way up through end of November. And then Mid-Realm had enough events that I was able to get out to 1 or 2 events a month to really test and see what was added to that, what was different, and not just fighting the practice in Detroit.
So I think, one of the big things that, and we're going to get to Sean right after this, but, I think you had probably one of the other goals was to get your son engaged.
Yeah.
And it's kind of fun because Dane comes from an SCA family as well. His father's a knight in Outlands. And, for your son, this is his time, and I know that it was hard for him to start because he came out of more organized sports, and we don't tend to be very organized. But I think, as much as you wanted to authorize, I think in a way you wanted to see your son authorize.
Oh yeah, that was a great event to go to and have him authorize up, and really he's been fighting really well. And so it's been fun to watch his progression at the same time, because he's been doing a lot of the same. Well, basically I've dragged him with me to a lot of the different things. It hasn't taken much dragging, but having, again, that accountability of someone else to go with, saying, okay, we're going to go tomorrow, we're going to go do this, has made a big difference on reaching some of those goals.
Yeah. And no matter how you think you're still coming back to where you were, I think I don't know where you were at the beginning, but I have a feeling you're doing okay. You came back shortly after, and what was that, TOC? I think you won a tournament there, right? That was
right. I won the captain's ladder, and then I also somehow managed to win a Danish axe tournament at Red Dragon. So,
well, so again, I think for the coolest part for I like about this is that we get lucky enough that both of you guys came on, and you have great stories. So I think we're going to talk about some more stuff and try to help people get into how, maybe some questions on how, and I'm gonna throw that out there, how you created some of these goals, what you did for some goals. So if people out online, please throw the questions out to us, because we really do, they help our show a lot. But for now, I'm going to throw it back at Sean. He had something to say.
Yeah, I wanted to mention, both Dane and Sivrid mentioned something that I think is absolutely critical. We're adults with jobs and kids and responsibilities and all this other stuff. I was very fortunate to grow up in the SCA as well. And when I was doing pell work and learning how to fight and everything, like I didn't have all those responsibilities. So like I had all the time in the world. But as Dane and Sivrid both mentioned, the time that you need to be excellent at what we do, that time does not exist. It's not like you have all, hours and hours of free time sitting on your hands to do nothing with. That time doesn't exist. You have to fabricate that time. You have to carve it out of your schedule. You have to make that time happen. Like Dane was saying, the irony of it is I'm sitting here on my ass watching YouTube about, how to like be better. And, there comes that moment where you're like, yeah, I should probably put this down and be better. I should carve out this time right now. Like Dane was saying, hasn't had a chance to watch Boba Fett yet because you have other priorities, right? And I got to tell you, the first episode was great. Looking forward to that. So, not to gloat too much, but so I work nights, so I've got some time to do that. But it's making those choices. And, and I always hear, we talk about the sacrifices that need to be made to be excellent at what we do. And, when we talk about that sort of thing, I'm never going to ask anybody to quit a job so they can go to Penzic.
No.
So they can go to an event or something like that. I'm not going to ask somebody to sacrifice their well-being and their livelihood and the livelihood of their families to be good at what we do. But yeah, like I said, to Dane's point right there, is like, I could either sit here for an hour and watch Boba Fett, or I can walk for 2 miles, right? And you have to make those decisions every day. And you have to decide where you are going to spend your time. We talk a lot on the show about, training smarter rather than training harder, right? I mean, again, with the like going out and pumping iron and going out and throwing, a million shots on the pill, like, is that really what you need to be doing? Like, train smarter, train better, but you have to make that time. You have to carve that out. You have to create it out of thin air, because that time does not exist. You have to make that happen. And again, we're not going to ask you to sacrifice your livelihood to do it, but there are things that you are doing in your day-to-day operations, playing games on your phone, watching TV, whatever it is. Every once in a while, you got to look at it and go, am I really doing what's going to make me a better fighter? Or am I going to, and if you're not doing those things, you're making choices, and that's fine. But you are deciding your fate. You have to create that time.
So, I'm going to call out, we have two very successful people that feel really good about the goals they set last year and getting through those. But I'm going to make sure everybody understands that not everybody, I can guarantee you, I didn't make some of the goals I wanted to last year. It really, towards the end of the year, fell apart between new shoulder, fight practices, losing sights, weather changing, not being able to do as much physical fitness and things like that. And kind of fell off that wagon. But I'm going to call our producer, Cy, who happens to be my squire as well. And she agreed that she probably, fell off the kind of the bus a little as well. Cy, do you want to go ahead and tell us how you kind of felt like you were going? And then I'm going to probably say a lot of it, what you said. I think you hit a lot of really good goals, but some of them weren't attainable because of other reasons.
So first, some background info. At the end of 2020, beginning of 2021, I was in the midst of some real awful health problems with my elbows. I had some major nerve issues, in constant pain, could barely function, was starting to wonder if I was going to need to take disability leave from my office job because I couldn't operate a computer. Obviously, this had an impact on my fighting, as in I couldn't pick up a sword at all. So my initial goal for 2021 was let's hopefully get to the point that I can swing a sword again. And after fortunately early in the year, I finally found some doctors that kind of figured out what was going on and were able to help me out and get my pain levels down a lot, get me back to being a functional human so I could pick up a sword and start doing stuff again. So then I started revising my goals to, hey, I want to try and get back, or at least start working back to where I was with my weightlifting, with my other fitness stuff that had kind of gone to the wayside when all I could do was walk, run, footwork, like only lower body. So I was trying to build my upper body back up, was trying to get my fighting back in shape. And that started going down the path and it was all going well. And then I got a multi-punch of our fight practice. Kind of took a hit of, we lost our winter practice sites. So as it started getting colder, we had less and less people coming because it was cold and we couldn't move inside. And the issues in my elbows have been very up and down. So some days they're totally functional and other days I can barely lift 5-pound weights again and it's an issue. And my mental health, quite honestly, took a massive dive in the last several months of this year. So I saw myself kind of go up and then there's been a big drop, and to be quite frank, I'm still in the middle of that. I'm still working through a lot of mental health issues and trying not to just be depressed and angry all the time. I'm still fighting with the elbows and trying to get any kind of workout routine going again because my motivation all fell apart. So
I think
yeah.
I think the key, it's all actually that I think all of that, and I think we both struggled losing our practices. I think and having physical issues going on. I think it's good to come on and talk about it because I think it's one way to make sure people understand that you had to do some things that you had to do, and we do have to get through mental issues, and we do have to get through those pieces. Setting goals is a struggle, and trying to obtain goals is a struggle, and that's why we set them. Yes, setting some low level goals is good, but there's still things you have to attain and you still have to work through. So I think this is important for everybody to understand. It's okay also not to meet your goals. One thing when you're resetting goals is be careful about moving goals you had from one year into the next year that were not obtained, because most likely they may not be attainable in the following year. You can change them a little, maybe drop that goal level down a little bit. This is part of the idea of setting goals. Saib, I don't know if Louis is sitting right next to you. Is he still there? So I'm going to ask you to turn the camera on Louis if he doesn't mind jumping on with us. He's used to being on Zoom quite a bit. He posted up something, and then I like the idea of really engaging some of the people that are active in our shows. Louis, you posted something about SMART. Can you go ahead and explain that a little bit to people?
Sure. I was just Googling as we were talking and trying to find some information, but so SMART is an acronym for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound goals. So when you set specific goals, make sure that you clearly define your goal. When you're setting measurable goals, you need to create some increment. Maybe it's a frequency, how often you're going to do something, but it's something you're in control of, not saying I want to be able to lift more weight and setting a new goal of how much weight you want to lift. It's I'm just going to go lift weights 3 times a week, and I'm going to make a commitment to that. Relevant goals, goals that relate to what you're trying to accomplish. Maybe it's going to do Pell work, or I'm going to work on some footwork, or something that relates to your overall goal that you're trying to accomplish. And time bound, give yourself some time limits, set some deadlines, make it so you're working towards something that has a very discrete time that you're aiming for.
Yeah, I think, thank you very much, Louis. I mean, you posted it and I was like, this is the kind of stuff that we really do want to talk about on the show a little bit. And Dane talked about it a little bit about time, setting those times and making that time. There's a lot of really great talk going online, and Sven, who's also really goal oriented and working out and doing those things, is really digging in out there too. There's a lot of people on the Coach's Corner willing to help and help you with goals if you want them. But I think the key here is take what Louis just said and take that as maybe the beginning of some of the ideas on setting goals, and write a bunch down and then go through the ones and put a star next to the ones you really think you can make, that kind of the bronze level ones, and 2 stars ones with like, well, I don't know. And those could even be ones that are based on, I don't know if we're going to be fighting or if I'm going to be at a fight practice or events are going to start back up. And then the 3 level one or the gold would be, I want to, I want to learn a different weapon style. I want to do footwork better. I want something that's attainable and measurable though. And I think that's a really big piece. I would want to, be able to lift more weight or do it more often, something that you can do it. And it's okay if you don't make those, because it really, there's a study that shows, you can make really easy attainable goals, but motivationally, it doesn't necessarily help you as much as goals that are very difficult to get to. And I'll post an article later when we post the video of this back out, about talking about some great studies around setting goals, sometimes setting goals that are very hard to make because they tend to make you work harder. Even if it's only at the beginning and you trail off, they tend to push that level of how hard you work up. And even when you trail off, you tend to actually stay at a level that's higher than you were. And the article also has some goal setting ideas on the bottom and how to set them. There are quite a few of them, which some of them are really good. So I'll definitely post that later. So I'm going to go back to Dane real quick. Dane, I know you said you kind of laid out all the things you did. Of course, you have your job kind of is a physical one, so that helps you in that space. What do you think was probably the hardest part about all the things you did last year? Like, what was the hardest thing to attain? What gold level thing? Is that the 80 pounds of weight drop, or was that I got stronger, or was that I got knighted last year? Right?
Yes.
What was it?
I think the hardest part was probably after kind of coming up with this plan. The hardest part was sifting through all the shenanigans and trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people out there, and there's a lot of fitness gurus, there's a lot of fighting gurus, there's a lot of gurus, and there is no one wrong way. But it was very hard to distinguish what was good information, what was bad information. I still don't know if I'm supposed to eat eggs or not, like that kind of thing. So, it was really hard to drink from the fire hose, so to speak, of information and determine what was relevant and what was not relevant. And, honestly, keeping the one, the golden goal for me was, unfortunately, fell right outside of the SMART constraints, because it was just, I want to be the best I've ever been. Now that's not measurable, but what is measurable was, setting rewards for myself. I know you mentioned your Fitbit, and right away I wanted to buy a Fitbit, and I told myself, all right, in January 1, we're going to start this. If you continue with this, then in March we can buy a Fitbit. And once you got the Fitbit, you can start setting new goals based on that. Walking goals, hitting your fitness goals, but definitely trying to figure out, what do we do? It's hard to take advice from people online. It's hard to find relevant information, and I found that it was the best source of information was going to be from a sports or MMA style kind of approach. Honestly, you're not going to be able to become a better fighter by following a strongman approach, right? We've already established that just lift, if you can deadlift 500 pounds, that doesn't make you a better fighter.
Yeah.
So maybe following the advice of deadlifters or bodybuilders or, guys who are on fitness covers or movie stars, because, Hugh Jackman, when he was in the Wolverine, he looked amazing, right? God, he looked amazing. But I'm guessing his ability to do SCA combat was limited by his energy levels, how he felt. I'm sure he said he felt like crap. He had no energy. He had no ability to recover. So taking fitness advice and goal setting advice from those people would have been catastrophic for SCA fighting. If you're trying to build, so you have to understand what you're trying to do. You're trying to be a better fighter. So who do you listen to? And I found, football coaches, like actual coaches, listening to, MMA coaches, listening to football coaches, doing those kind of things. That was the hardest thing to really put together. And once I kind of put the plan together, it all just fell into place, and it was very simple.
Yeah, so I think that's the key, and I think and you're 100% right. You have to be careful. You make sure you research the things that you want to do. If you want to be, super strong and throw, really hard shots, it may not be, well, let's see, who does, if I bench press 300 some pounds, I should be able to throw harder. Yeah, probably, but it may not be the best way to get there. And finding the people that are doing the things that are a little bit more what you're trying to do would probably be a better place, and have them explain and help you through the understanding of it is actually even more important than just getting strong. Sivert, you had something, I think, on our last conversation, and I'm gonna ask you the same question. What do you think was the hardest part, hardest goal you set, and why was it hard to get there?
Well, I think my hardest goal is one I didn't really list out, and that is to be a challenge for any fighter on the field. And that's where I want to get to, so that I'm a challenge or a threat to anyone I face on the field. So that's my ultimate goal, but it's not necessarily one that I can, that's one where I have to break down, and you say, that's the 3-star goal that might not be achievable in 1 year or in 2 years or in 3 years. I also know that I have a limited time left because, I'm already in my 50s. So I have, that balance. So that for me, that is the challenge, or for me was the most challenging, just because I have a long way to go on that one. And so, but part of that was then coming down and breaking that down into that, when we go back to the SMART goals. So what is the R I'm used to hearing with SMART goals is realistic. And so how do I set goals that I can actually say, okay, this one I can set up, and the realistic and timely is, what can I do in the next 6 months? What can I do in the next month? And so I think a lot of those were setting very specific goals on, okay, now I need to fix this particular thing with how my hand is, how I'm holding my hand. This particular thing on how I'm holding my shield. And so I think the hardest thing was making the connection between that really long range goal and each of those small little goals, and saying, okay, I got this one. Yeah, I'm still only one rung of the ladder further. And instead of being, all the way where I want to be in several years.
So, yeah, and I think the good part there is it goes right back into modifying your goals, right? And so you have an overall goal, but you kind of, as kind of like Dane said, he wanted to be the best he could be. He wanted to be a challenge for everybody. He wanted to be the best, right? And I totally understand his goal. I remember I wanted to be the best in the SCA, but not just for 1 year. I wanted to be the best at it for 20, because I know a lot of Dukes that they were the best for a couple of years. I wanted to be able to go into a crown over 20 years and people be able to say, it's going to be, it's his to have. And I think that's okay. But I think the key, what you're talking about, Sivert, is that through that is I just didn't get there by like, that's the top of the ladder. I'm just going to jump to the top rung. That's not how it happens. It's one step at a time. It's like, all right, what is stopping me from getting one run close, right? And I'm going to work on that one, and then I'm going to work on the next one, and then I'm going to work on the next one. And I that's the way you climb a ladder is one step at a time, right? And you know, and it's a much easier place to be. Sometimes those steps are even small. Could be tiny steps. And I think the important piece is to be able to say, don't be so rigid about, you know, here are my year goals. You know, you both probably changed them through the time that you did them because it became really important. It's like, oh, here's a piece. In fact, it wasn't even a goal at the beginning because I didn't know my hand was wrong. right? But now it's a goal, right? And that's the idea, is that this is a changing piece of, especially when you set really high goals and you're not even sure how to get there yet. It has to change. I think for Dane was like burning through goals, and he probably had to set some new goals because, well, the goals that he set were too low. That bar may have been too low. You know, maybe they were realistic to him at the time, but you know, sometimes you get into that groove, and then it's kind of that flow state where you can perform everything so much better that, you know, what would have taken you 10 hours before, it takes you 2 hours, and you're on to the next step, because it is just, you know, your mind is open and you're thinking about one thing. And you know, I was reading another great article on flow state. I'll post it this week, that talks about that and how flow state works. But you know, this is a case where goals changed, and it's okay for them to change. For Saib, goals changed. She couldn't do the stuff with her arms that she did before, but she, you know what? You know, she's like, okay, I can't hit that goal. I got a new goal. I'm gonna, while my arms are getting better, I'm going to get better at this, or I'm going to dig in. And in fact, for Saib, she already knew how to do footwork and drills. She runs them all the time for us. But she really dug in. She's like, you know what? I just want to make sure I still going to practice every week, and I'm still doing stuff that's going to progress me forward. So I think that's, you know, a big part of this. Sivert, I believe you wanted to jump on. Did you still remember what you wanted to talk about from the previous conversation?
So no, that was more about just looking at when I was setting a lot of goals. I actually went back, and that's how I put my goals out, is in that using that SMART kind of framework.
Oh, perfect.
And I find it very useful because it really does keep you into setting goals that you can look at a real timeline and say, hey, I can actually meet this goal. And then it also gives you a time to reevaluate. So okay, I've met my goal. Now what do I reevaluate? What's my next goal? Or like you were just saying, exactly. So it puts that in, how do I come up with a new goal? Or did I just set my bar too low, and I really need to be, you know, realistic is a much larger goal than I was trying to set for myself, and that kind of thing is looking at what is a realistic goal, and reevaluation. I think what you just said, that's a really important piece to it.
So, you know, it's interesting, as I was reading through some goal setting articles, and I wrote down a couple of things that kind of touch base. And I wasn't going to even talk about this one a little bit, but I guess I'm gonna throw it out there because I think it's something that needs to be talked about. There is also a kind of the bad side of setting too hard of a goal, and they talk about this a little bit, and that is that research showed that some hard goals are really, you know, goals that are very difficult to get to, is also associated with unethical behavior. So I'm going to go and take this beyond the unethical behavior, and we see that already. Some people have goals to win crown, and then they go in there and it's maybe not as nice as we're hoping, right? But goals can lead you down a path that's dangerous, and not only ethically, but to yourself. So Dane, and hey, Sean rejoined us. We lost Sean for a bit. It's nice to have you back, Sean. I'm going to throw this one at you, Dane, for a second. Did you find that anything around your goals kind of either, I don't think they're going to be on the unethical side, but on maybe the physical side that maybe you shouldn't have done, or maybe you went a little too far, or maybe there was something else that you maybe you gave up too much time with the family or something. Is there anything in there that was like, all right, this goal pushed me a little farther than I probably should have went?
Yeah, it's a work in progress, but I mean, one of the ones that jumps off the page would be a certain amount of maybe obsession and body dysmorphia kind of crept in a little bit, kind of the idea that, when you start this, you kind of have this, quasi vision of where you want to see yourself. And now you're hitting those steps. And maybe you get to the point where you thought you'd be, and you're like, I can get better. I can do better than this. I'm starting to be able to maybe see some abs, I can get this or that. And I did fall into a trap for a time of, I'm just not, I'm progressing, but, I could look better. I could do this better. I can do that better. And not really appreciating where I was at. I was maybe striving to a little harder and comparing myself to other people, which, I've learned from my mistakes. Really, it's not a good idea to compare yourself to other people. Compare yourself to yourself and look at yourself. And I mean, that's one of the reasons I started taking those pictures. I sent you a couple.
Yep.
And because I was like, well, I mean, if I'm going to compare myself to myself and I want to get out of the habit of, comparing myself to a fitness model, then I need some comparisons. So that was one of the dark sides. Yeah. Little body dysmorphia. Maybe I'm not going to say an eating disorder ever crept in. I really don't believe that, but I did get a little bit absurd for about 2 weeks about counting calories. And I kind of regretted that. Because I said it out loud, and my 16-year-old daughter, she heard me, and she was like, well, how many calories are in Oreo cookie? And at that moment, I was like, it doesn't matter. Give me the cookie. And I was like, I don't want her to, I didn't want her to see that side of it. So I cut back on that, and I kind of quit counting the calories, and, so I had taken it too far. And, that was probably somewhere in, June, July-ish time frame. And I backed off of that, and I got to a more reasonable, a reasonable spot with, body image, with, eating, with performance, and so you can go too far for sure. And you've got to be careful. You've got to be careful of that.
Yeah, I think this is actually a pretty good subject. Nobody talks about this part of the subject, and I think you nailed some of the pieces on the head there. And it's like you had great success, but you have to look back, and there are struggling times in there, and sometimes we thank goodness you could see it, but sometimes we don't. And I think that's a good reminder to people. Sivrid, did you run into anything like this?
So just as far as and I have some of the same things with saying, okay, how much do I want to actually watch my weight, and how much do I like ice cream? And there's that trade-off there. And I got to a certain point, and I said, well, either if I'm trying to actually gain muscle, I can't be trying to lose weight at the same time. And that's another fun path to try to go down to. You try to do both things at once. You can't do both at once very well, because you mess one up or the other up. And so I think that was part of my problems, was more the competing goals, which you really can't do at the same time.
No, I tend to agree. I think we see other goals like jealousy creep in, when you're working so hard at something and somebody else isn't, but they're able to do it earlier than you, or it seems like they're able to do it earlier than you. There, you get some jealousy, you get a number of things like that. Sometimes you're like, this guy shouldn't be able to beat me, so I don't think that shot was good, instead of actually just worrying about the shot. It's not about if he could beat you or not. It's about, was the shot good or not?
Right.
Sean, how about this is an interesting subject. I wanted to bring it up. I wasn't going to bring it up, but I thought, what, we should probably talk about it.
Yeah. First off, I want to say, when Dave was talking about, how many calories earn an Oreo cookie, and it brings up the point that, a package of Oreo cookies brings a whole new meaning to the term doing a line. Because, I'm just going to rip right through a whole line of Oreos. But you guys have both brought up some really good points about realistic goals, right? And that whole, the body dysmorphia, it's not just body dysmorphia. It is, it's compare and despair. It's comparing yourself to, like you said, how other people are attaining their goals or not, and one of the things that we always talk about in our lineage is that, their belt is not your belt, right? So it doesn't matter if somebody gets, knighted before you do. They have other factors that contribute or detract from their success, right? And when we're talking about goal setting, Dane got knighted in this last year, and that was a pretty good year for him. But I think, when we look at certain goals, not, we talk about the SMART stuff that Louis was talking about, which I absolutely agree with. Part of that too is goals need to be, they need to be ambitious and they need to be obtainable. Now, something that Ron also talked about is that ambitious kind of goal is like, if you don't have something to actually work for, then that's just kind of something you'd like to do. It's not something that you really want to work for, right? And so it has to be ambitious. It has to be something that you really want to work at, but it also has to be attainable. And some of the goals that we end up setting, setting a goal, I want to get knighted this year. Yeah, that worked out right for Dane, but I don't think that's what you set for your goal at the beginning of the year, because there's so many factors that are involved with that are out of your control. And the goals that we set have to be within our control. They have to be things that we can do. They have to be those, discrete, achievable tasks that we can break down and we can actually do these things. But this last year, like I said, I won crown and I went to the finals of the Valkyrie Rose tourney at Great Western. But for me to start off the year to say that those are goals that I have that I'm going to do, there's so many factors that are involved with that are beyond your control that I think really make it not impossible to achieve those goals, but impractical, because they are out of your control. And you have to, your goals have to be realistic. They have to be ambitious. They have to be obtainable, among other things. And I think that kind of hits on a lot of what you guys have been talking about just recently.
All right. Well, it's kind of interesting because it's kind of the darker subject of goals. The good part is I think it's just making sure that people understand. And also, I think on the second side of it, sometimes we get so excited about goals, we forget about those people that really maybe they're just not in that space to do goals, or just goals weren't something that's comfortable for them. So we have to be a little careful around them. But on the other side, if you're one of those people, be excited for those that do like goals. I think the key is there's room for everybody here, and just because maybe goals aren't a thing for you, it doesn't mean that goals may need, for some people, maybe they have to have goals to feel like they're getting through life some. So remember, there's always, that there's always two sides, and there's everything in between. When somebody comes to you and asks how you do it, all you can do is explain to them, and hopefully they can see the positive sides of what that is, and maybe either they can look at goals that can get through relatively easy and get a better feel for them, or maybe sometimes you set in such hard goals that you're like, maybe I need to get some simpler goals for now, and that's the other side of it. So I guess, after talking, I really liked what Louis said, and I definitely going to dig into that a little bit more and post some stuff when we get the video up, because I think it's important. I'm going to throw this back at Dane. Dane, so it's 2022. What you going to do now?
Well,
Eat more
once again-
Oreos, or
I mean, you
what's
got to
going
beat, you got to beat next, you got to beat last year.
on?
Yeah, it's so far right now. I set myself a goal to I'm going to launch the War Machine again in on January 15th. Once again, I didn't want to do the cliched first, and I wanted to kind of have a reflective period through the holidays and New Year's and kind of settle down. I built a new training program. I'm going to be focusing on some weightlifting and some more kind of the body weight cardio type stuff. My goal was this year. It's a little more specific, but I can't really control it very much. I wanted to get to a big event and win the tournament. That was my goal, was to basically either make it to Lily's or make it to a big inter-kingdom event and win a tournament. I think it's achievable. I think it's doable. I think it's going to be a fun pursuit. Whether it, and I want to take this, it's not a winning condition, I don't have to do it to feel like I've won the day, or set my goal. If I get there, just get there, I'd be happy.
So are there micro goals? Are there things you have to work on to get there?
Oh, there's a ton of micro goals. Right now, I mean, if we want to get specific, I've laid out a workout plan for myself it's an 8-week workout plan. And it's for weightlifting primarily. I right now I'm doing all my baselines for the big lifts, and I'm getting where my numbers are at now, and I've set goals for where I want those lifts to get to in the future. I have a couple of workouts that I do that I've timed. I have various, like push-ups and sit-ups. How many push-ups can I do in a minute? It used to be burpees. It was how many burpees can I do in 2 minutes? And I wanted to get past that and kind of broaden my horizons. So I actually have a spreadsheet of various physical things. I have a spreadsheet of practices that we kind of want to try to implement. Me and our group that's around me, it's kind of scattered. There's like 2 fighters in every small town, and there's about 6 small towns, and we all have to we each drive 45 minutes to create kind of a Franken practice. But we've got goals in mind, and being Minnesota, outdoor practice right now is, it's -6 degrees and snowy, so that's out. But we have a goal of establishing a regular fighter practice, outside of our baronial one, and doing that 2 times a month, through the spring. And that's something that a couple of us are working on. One of my other goals is to drag Duke Morgan out to the homestead and get him fired up and going again. He's desperate to get back into fighting, and there's a lot of other people that are kind of in his boat, and so yeah, there's a plethora of micro goals, there's a plethora of macro goals, and I had a lot of practice last year setting them and achieving them, and as you mentioned already, they're fluid. Maybe the SCA is canceled again, who knows, and there are no big events. Well, I guess we'll just have to adjust on the fly and do something else, but at the moment, that's kind of where I'm sitting, and I've got a plan in place, and it's ready to go come January 15th.
Awesome. Well, I know
And
one other thing.
Men's Health. I forgot about that one.
What's that?
And to get on the cover of Men's Health. Forgot about that.
I think that's a gold level goal right there. I
That's a
think
goal.
one other thing you had mentioned is that, and this is goal I really near and dear to the heart, and that is that you want to be able to get out there and help others a lot more.
Mm-hmm. Big time. I mean, that is a big one. And part of it is, I mean, I'm going to open a vein. I don't really like talking about some emotional stuff with my background, but I have kind of felt a little fraud like for the past 8 months. Really, you're supposed to be kind of a leader of your group when you get knighted, at least in my opinion. you're supposed to be participating with practices and helping and training and being there. And, we've had some opportunities to make it to practice. And because of the line of work I'm in, I felt uncomfortable, kind of whimsically exposing myself to people too often. I was trying to keep a little bit of accountability, and just kind of the lack of events, really I haven't had the opportunity to work with a lot of people. I'm hoping that we can maybe shift gears this spring and, get out of flu season and get outdoors and be able to sink our teeth into this and, start trying to help people along.
I look forward to hearing. I'm going to keep track of you and accountable, make you accountable. But I really look forward to hearing what you end up doing. So, Sivrid, just because we're kind of running towards the end of the show, what kind of goals you have for next year?
Well, I think a couple of them I have. One of which is trying to get a little more consistency in how I'm fighting. So get sometimes to, and then some of that's mental. And so try to get to a point where I'm actually doing either, specifically at practice, doing a much more competition minded couple of fights at the end of sets, things like that, or practice tournament type things, just to get in that competitive mindset with some of my fighting. So that's a mental thing. One of which is to continue going to 2 practices a week. And then I'd like to get to, so one of the things in Toledo, I think there's about 5 practices, all of which were really high end within 2 hours. So, try to get to either Cleveland or Columbus or Dayton a couple times during the spring.
All good ones.
And then I have some cardio goals, which are pretty specific about the amount of time I want to spend on a bike trainer, things like that. And also trying to get back into actually doing a little more strength training and with your favorite exercise of squats.
Oh, yeah, our squat. Yeah, everybody loves squats.
And so then there's some specific technique things which we've been working on that I want to work on. Finding I'm fighting too much on my heels, need to get up on my toes, things like that. So there's some specific techniques, things and those will get reevaluated probably every month, every 2 months to see what needs to be worked on next.
That sounds like a great list, brother. So I look forward to it. Send me a copy when you get done.
Yep.
Sean.
Yeah.
All you, baby.
Yeah. At the end of actually last month, something popped up on my Facebook feed, and I decided to click a link. And so this summer, July 9th and 10th, I'm actually going to be doing a Spartan race. It was totally random, Facebook link that I clicked on that as soon as I saw it, it was, again, it's ambitious, it's attainable. It's something that, it's been a while since I've wanted to work this hard at something, and I've already kind of, everything I'm doing in just my regular daily exercise or, just ranch life or whatever is kind of, that's always in my mind is doing Spartan Race. And I've managed to convince a handful of hooligans to join me. So we should have a team of somewhere between 5 and 9. But yeah, it was, like I said, I didn't really have goals that I set last year. There's always something you want to work on. There's always improvements you want to make in your fight and everything. But, this is a thing that is not specifically fighting related, but I think is, that it is going to kind of lead to the fitness that I want to have for my fighting career, especially, after doing this for a number of years. And quite frankly, like I said, physical fitness in my fighting has never really been a priority. But, gentlemen of a certain age have been doing this for a number of years, got a certain amount of mileage on me. I have to start thinking more and more about physical conditioning because I'm getting to an age where those things are going to be impacting me more frequently and more severely. So yeah, the Spartan Race thing is something that I'm excited about. I want to work at, and I think is going to help out my my longevity in my fight as well. Other than that, it's, like I said before, it's, I've had some pretty good achievements in this last year, but none of those were, you don't set out the year to say, I want to win crown. And, Dane was talking about it, I want to win a big tournament. Yeah, that is ambitious, but as he mentioned, those are things that there are many factors in that are out of your control. But being able to say that, pick a tournament, right? Pick the biggest tournament that Dane can say he wants to go to Candlemas, right? And to be able to just say, I want to compete in Candlemas, I want to enter that list, right? And obviously you want to do as well as you can, but sure, you can say, I want to win Candlemas. There's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but it starts with entering, just showing up and entering. I think for some folks, there's some things that are coming up that I think can help people out quite a bit. We've got adult swim in the middle of February that is coming up. Just being able to say that you're going to go to adult swim and you're going to fight as many fights as you can fight at adult swim, or you're going to fight as many, maybe you go to adult swim and you say, I'm going to fight nothing but unbelts, or I'm going to fight nothing but royal peers. Those are things that you can do. They're completely within your control. There's plenty of opportunity at an event like that. We've got spring training happening at our house in April as well, and there's going to be plenty of folks that you can run into. There's been the Shiv hunt has been updated. So that's getting to fight 50 nights, 3 fights each in a year. Again, that's ambitious and it's attainable, and it's something that you can work at, and it's something that is measurable. So it meets all those metrics for what a good goal is. So there's lots of stuff that we can do coming up in the next year that are, that we can strive for and work at, and as Dane had mentioned too, victory conditions, right? Just saying that saying that you want to win a big tournament, that's a great start. But pick one and go enter. You must be present to win, right?
Yep. I think that's a big part there. And on the last kind of a little bit of the last side of this is sometimes goals, that accountability piece is a big piece. And for those who are training with somebody, who are partners with somebody and working on things, who are squires or men-at-arms or have those relationships with other people, share those, because those people want to help you, and they want to help you work through that, help you when you're failing at something, help you reach the goals you're at, and celebrate when you do get the accomplishments. And it's a big part. A lot of times we set those for ourselves, but I know for me, and Sivert can tell you, every time he won a fight, every time I got to see him fight and do stuff, he knew how proud I was of him, right? Because he's been training with us, and there's a lot for me, to tell you the truth. One of my goals through life has been trying to be there to help people obtain something they really want. And if that's fighting, or if that's service, or if that's just enjoying their life and things like that, that's perfectly fine. But it's really, they're on the ride with you, and they will celebrate. And when those things crash, they will help you figure out what maybe a different goal is, instead of you struggling by yourself, or those pieces. Your friends, your trainers, your coaches, they're there for you. Share it with them, because that's a super important part of the process. And I think that's something we all have to think about. We're running in. We got about 8 more minutes. First thing I would like to do is I really want to thank Dane and Sivert for coming on and sharing what's been a great year for them. I'd like to thank Cy for coming on and sharing something that was really hard. because I've watched her struggle with it, and it is difficult. And sometimes you want to lock everybody out, and it's hard to let them in. But a lot of times, telling people why or what's happening or what, that you're not going to meet a goal that you really were looking forward to meeting is the first step to maybe you fell off the ladder, but it's the first step back onto the first rung, and that's super important. Finding teams, Dane brought this up a number of times, and that is finding groups of people that can work together and you guys push each other along that way. I was, as much as we have our Sunday drills that we did for, the last year, they were as satisfying for me as they were for the people that attended them. And we all worked together. They made me better stretching, better understanding of things we were doing. They documented things. They went out and teach classes, and they came back and told me good things that were happening or things that they were struggling with, so I could actually think about them and try to work through some of those things. So they made me better. As much as I think they were like, hey, here's the opportunity to train with me, it was really an opportunity for me to become a better teacher and learn through their path and rejoice in their successes. And so having those people around you helping, and that includes involving your wife, your family, so that they can also be happy for you and meet some of those goals, because they want to be happy for you too, because they know you're putting in hard work, and they're giving up stuff. They're giving up their time. They get time with you, maybe, but they understand, and so don't forget them either. Hey, Sean, what do we have next week?
Yeah, we had it's got a couple of that came up. Hang on just a second. I think we had is it mentally dealing with
lack ability to fight,
right?
Oh, hey, maybe we'll have
Is that the one
on this one for person for sure.
Yeah, sorry, I was just updating some of those tonight. So, but I think that's the one we've got for next week.
Yeah, we got a bunch of coaches on for that one, I think. So it should be interesting. So
well, we've got let's see. Yeah, all the schedule is messed up. Yeah, I think that's the one we got next though is how to deal with mentally not being able to fight. It's something that happens it certainly happens when you don't expect it. Injury or life or whatever, when life kind of hits you hard and you, for some reason, you were unable to fight. For those of us that love fighting as much as we do, like, how do you deal with that? So we're going to be talking about some of that, and we're going to have Duke Mark Darendale is going to be joining us for that one. He's one of our Buddhist gurus there when we're looking at some of the mental aspects of fighting and kind of the mental and spiritual and emotional side of dealing with some of that stuff. So that should be a really, really good episode.
I agree. Dane, Severin, do you guys have anything you'd like to say right before leaving? I definitely want to thank you for coming on the show. You definitely made it a ton better for all of us and hopefully everybody here. And Happy New Year. Thank you for coming on New Year's Day to do it. So, did you have anything, Dane? Anything you want to say?
Happy New Year's to everybody. And
awesome.
Your guys' show is motivational. It's helped me. I don't know how many people tell you, I'm sure everybody, but it's personally helped me a lot, and it's helped a lot of people I know, and we're not very vocal about it probably, but it's a huge blessing that you guys are doing this, and everybody that's associated with this. I know it's a lot of work. So thank you.
You're really welcome. No problem. Thank you for coming on. Severin?
I'd like to say echo similar things. A lot of the shows over the course of the year have really been part of helping me set my goals as we go through. And so even coming back and starting, one of the comments made very early on, coming to a practice with an empty cup, made sure that I was able to actually absorb a lot of the information. So I really thank you. And Cy, I also want to thank you for continuing to host practice, even when you're having frustrations, because that's meant a lot to me and to William, is being able to have a practice come up to.
Well, thank you for joining us and being part of our practices. It's everybody there that make those what they are and helping each other. That's the key in our community, really. I think that's a big thing. So we're going to thank, of course, thank Sive and Al-Anon, who's been great out there just blasting along comments with people and enjoying time. He posted up a bunch of his goals out there. So hopefully his first goal is to get that damn knee fixed. We will look forward to talking and seeing everybody next week on the show. I think it's going to be a great episode. Lots of great coaches. And I hope everybody had a great holiday season. Everybody stayed safe. It's a new year. Hopefully it's not a tall bar to have it as a better year than last. All we can do is keep hoping. So thanks, everyone, and have a great night. Bye.